Dr. Ethan Cole stepped off the shuttle into the humming atrium of Zyrak Station, the kind of place where every species walked with their shoulders slightly raised, as if expecting trouble from someone they didn't yet understand. He adjusted the strap of his field pack and scanned the wide concourse. Rows of crystalline pillars cast shifting blue lights across polished metal flooring, while alien merchants and officers paused mid-step to stare at him. Humans were still a rarity this far out, and even rarer in a research context. Ethan offered a polite nod to a passing Zyrakian guard, though the guard immediately flinched and skirted around him as if proximity alone carried risk. He sighed under his breath. Humans weren't dangerous. Well, no more dangerous than anyone else, but rumors in deep space traveled faster than reason. Even so, Ethan wasn't here to socialize. He had come to study xenobiological behavior patterns and represent Earth's scientific delegation. He kept walking, boots ringing softly across the metallic floor, until a nervous alien officer intercepted him. "You are the human scientist," the officer said, voice buzzing like a static transmitter. The alien's wide, reflective eyes flicked over Ethan's frame with a mixture of respect and caution. "Dr. Ethan Cole," Ethan replied. "Reporting for assignment." "Stay alert, human," the officer murmured before darting away. Ethan frowned. That was oddly dramatic even by alien standards. A shrill alarm erupted across the station, slicing through the air like a razor. Red lights washed over the chamber, bathing every terrified face in an urgent glow. Ethan stopped mid-stride as dozens of aliens shrieked warnings in their own languages. "Containment failure. Predator-class juvenile on the loose. Seal the eastern wing. Protect the council members." The term predator class was universally understood. It meant something lethal, fast, and close enough to an apex species that even armed soldiers hesitated to engage. Yet for a juvenile to cause this much panic, it meant the creature's adult form must have been catastrophic. Ethan watched as terrified civilians scrambled behind barricades that unfolded from the walls like metallic shields. Even the armed guards retreated behind reinforced barriers. His pulse quickened, not with fear but fascination. A predator cub loose in a crowded station was a disaster waiting to happen, and the fastest way to understand a species was to see it unfiltered. He moved toward the source of the commotion, ignoring the shouted warnings aimed at him. A sharp, almost feline hiss echoed through the corridor ahead, followed by the patter of claws on metal. Ethan slowed his approach, eyes tracing shadows spilling across the floor. Then it appeared. Small, roughly the size of a large house cat, but built like something that had been engineered to survive planetary extinction events. Its scales shimmered with iridescent blacks and deep greens, for luminous eyes rotating independently to scan every corner. A line of spines ran down its back, still short but already sharp. Its fangs, though barely emerging, gleamed wetly in the emergency lights. The creature crouched, tail swaying low to the ground in perfect predatory rhythm. The energy in the air tightened with the tension of a bowstring drawn too far. Aliens trapped behind a barrier whimpered in fear. It spotted him, back away from the human. The cub will tear him apart. But Ethan didn't move. The cub's gaze darted around, pupils contracting into narrow slits. It was frightened, disoriented, reacting on instinct rather than aggression. He crouched slowly, lowering himself to eye level, ensuring his movements were deliberate, predictable, unthreatening. "Easy," he murmured, his voice carrying steady warmth. "You're scared. I get it." The cub hissed again, body taut, claws clicking. Ethan extended one hand, palm exposed. The aliens behind him screamed protests. The creature twitched. Its four eyes locked onto his hand. Its nostrils flared as it inhaled his scent. And then, without warning, it leaped. Alien witnesses shrieked in pure terror. But the cub didn't strike. Instead, it landed against Ethan's chest with surprising weight, pressing its small head beneath his chin and curling its body across his torso. Its spines flattened, no longer threatening. Its eyes softened into a drowsy glow. A strange, audible trill, something between a purr and a soft growl, vibrated from its throat. The fearful tension in its limbs dissolved as it nuzzled him, clinging like an exhausted animal starved for comfort. Ethan blinked in astonishment. "You're not what they think you are you?" he whispered. The cub responded by climbing onto his shoulder and curling into a ball, its tail draping across his back like a warm scarf. It closed all four eyes and, unbelievably, fell asleep. Silence swallowed the corridor. Then whispers began, sharp and terrified. The human touched it, willingly. It's sleeping on him, like a bonded hatchling. No juvenile predator has reacted like that to any species, let alone a human. Ethan rose carefully, supporting the cub's weight as its tiny claws clung gently to his shirt. He could feel the rhythmic pressure of its breathing through the fabric. It was lighter than it looked, surprisingly warm, and undeniably alive in a way textbooks could never capture. A group of armored officers approached slowly, weapons lowered but not holstered. The lead investigator, a tall, stern Zyrakian male with deep plum-colored scales, studied Ethan with wide, unblinking eyes. "Human, do not move abruptly," he instructed. "I wasn't planning to," Ethan replied. "The creature is a Vor'kan predator cub," the investigator said, voice thin with disbelief. "They are not known for docility." "Maybe it's just having a rough day," Ethan murmured, stroking the cub's head gently. The spines along its back rippled in contentment. The investigator's voice cracked. It imprinted on you." Ethan raised a brow. "Imprinted? The Vor'kan bond only with their own kind," another officer shouted. "This is impossible." "Clearly not," Ethan muttered. The cub shifted in its sleep, burying its head deeper into the crook of Ethan's neck. Several officers flinched as if the movement might cause an explosion. Ethan could feel the scrutiny tightening around him, pressure building with each hesitant step closer the aliens took. Their fear wasn't simply of the cub, it was of what it meant. A human had just overridden one of the galaxy's most aggressive biological instincts by doing nothing more than offering calm presence. A door hissed open at the far end of the corridor. A senior researcher strode out, a tall, elderly Silithian male draped in layered robes, his silver skin reflecting the emergency lights. His gaze swept over the scene with a slow, deliberate calculation. "Dr. Ethan Cole," he said, voice deep and resonant, "you have caused an event we do not entirely understand." Ethan shrugged lightly, mindful of the sleeping creature. "I didn't do anything." "Exactly," the elder replied. "That is what concerns us." He stepped closer, eyes narrowing at the cub. "This youngling should have attacked everything in sight. It should have fought until it was sedated or killed. Yet here it rests, resting like a domesticated pet, on the shoulder of a human who has been aboard this station for less than 10 minutes. Ethan felt the cub adjust itself again, letting out a soft chuff of contentment. "I think it's scared," Ethan said. "Sometimes fear looks like aggression, sometimes the opposite." The elder stared at him in silence before answering, "You may be correct, but the implications are vast." Several aliens exchanged uneasy glances. The cub's breathing remained soft and steady. Ethan kept one hand resting lightly against its side, maintaining a steady warmth the cub seemed to crave. "So," Ethan said after a moment, "what now?" The elder folded his hands behind his back. "Now, Dr. Cole, you will accompany us to the council chamber. We must discuss the unprecedented phenomenon you have created." Ethan nodded. "Fine. But I'm not handing him," he glanced at the sleeping creature, "or her or it, over to anyone who's planning to treat it like a live bomb." "We are not barbarians," the elder replied. "But understand, human, its species has reshaped ecosystems, destroyed settlements and torn apart armored patrols. A Vor'kan juvenile is a nightmare scaled down, not defanged." Ethan met his gaze. "Then maybe nightmares behave differently when they're not treated like monsters." A ripple of discomfort passed through the crowd. The elder lifted a hand for silence. "Very well," he said. "But you will be accompanied by security at all times. And you will not leave the cub unattended. Until we understand this bond, you are both considered potential threats." Ethan almost smiled. "That's the nicest thing anyone said to me since I arrived." The elder didn't smile back. As they began walking toward the council chamber, aliens parted to give Ethan an absurdly wide berth. Whispers followed him like a trailing wind. "The cub trusts him." "Why a human? How? What if others can do this too?" Ethan kept his pace steady, careful not to disturb the creature resting against him. Step after step, he became acutely aware that the station's entire population now viewed him differently, not as a newcomer, not as a curiosity, but as something dangerously unpredictable. Something capable of altering natural order simply by existing. The cub stirred faintly, pressing closer to his neck. Its warmth radiated through him, grounding him. He didn't know what this bond meant. He didn't know what dangers it would bring. But as he crossed the threshold into the council chamber, with every alien eye locked onto him and the creature nestled against him like a sleeping cat made of claws and starlight, one thing became unmistakably clear. Whatever happened next would change everything. And he had no intention of letting go. Dr. Ethan Cole entered the council chamber with the predator cub still curled on his shoulder, its small body rising and falling in a slow, warm rhythm. The chamber itself was a wide, domed room constructed from interlocking violet metals that shimmered under soft white lights. Seats arranged in a semicircle were occupied by Zyrakians, Silithians, and several species Ethan hadn't yet learned, all watching him with a mixture of dread and disbelief. Even the air felt tense, as if every molecule held its breath. Ethan took a seat where he was directed, though the cub refused to be dislodged. It shifted slightly, its claws pricking through his shirt as it repositioned itself with a sleepy grumble. The sound was small, almost adorable, but judging by the way half the council recoiled, it might as well have been a declaration of war. The elder Silithian who had addressed him earlier stepped forward. "Dr. Cole, we must understand what occurred. Speak truthfully without embellishment." "I always do," Ethan replied. "Begin with the moment of contact." Ethan exhaled, recalling the encounter. "It was frightened. That's the simplest answer. When an animal is scared, it reacts based on familiarity or survival instinct. It smelled me, assessed me, and decided I wasn't a threat." A Zyrakian officer leaned forward, his scaled jaw tightening. "Humans do not fall within its recognized familial or predatory categories. That reasoning is insufficient." "Maybe your data is insufficient," Ethan said calmly. "Species surprise us all the time." The officer bristled and used to being contradicted. But the elder lifted a hand, silencing him. "Whether by instinct or anomaly, the creature has bonded with you," the elder said. "A veil-carry bond is not trivial. It is a psychological and biological imprinting that shapes the creature's development. What you see now, a calm, malleable youngling, can change dramatically as it matures." Ethan stroked the cub's back, feeling the tiny muscles flex beneath its scales. "So you're saying this thing is going to grow up fast?" "Very fast," the elder replied. "Veil-carry juveniles reach combat maturity within a few cycles. Their instincts sharpen. Their physical capabilities multiply. A bonded veil-carry becomes aggressively protective of its chosen guardian." Ethan frowned. "Protective how?" Another council member answered, voice trembling. "Lethally." The cub let out a soft chirr and tightened its hold on Ethan's shoulder, as if objecting to the tone. Ethan rubbed its head gently, and the creature relaxed again. The simple interaction sent more ripples of unease through the council. "If that's true," Ethan said, "then understanding this bond is even more important. I'm not trying to cause trouble. I want to help you figure out what happened." "Of course you do," the elder said. "But help requires cooperation. And cooperation requires risk. You must allow us to run controlled behavioral assessments." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "You want to test it?" "We must determine whether your presence stabilizes or exacerbates its instincts," the elder replied. "Without this knowledge, the entire station remains in danger." Ethan studied the faces around him, some fearful, some hostile, some merely exhausted. He understood their fear. For them, this creature represented catastrophe. For him, it represented an opportunity to change how their species interacted with misunderstood predators. "All right," he said. "I'll participate. But the cub stays with me." "That is the intention," the elder confirmed. "Separating you would be catastrophic." Ethan couldn't argue with that. Even the idea of prying the cub away from him felt wrong, as if it would tear something unseen. The creature's bond felt instinctive and strangely mutual. As council members debated logistics and risks, Ethan focused on the cub, observing its breathing, the slow flick of its tail, the small vibrations of its purr. It was still a mystery, wrapped in scales, instinct, and unexpected affection. But mysteries were exactly why he dedicated his life to xenobiology. When the meeting finally adjourned, 2 Zyrakian guards escorted him through the corridor toward the behavioral wing. Both kept their distance, glancing often at the small creature perched on Ethan's shoulder. One of them, a tall male with copper scales, spoke quietly. "Human, are you not afraid?" "Of him?" Ethan shifted slightly so the guard could see the cub's peaceful expression. "No. Should I be?" "You carry a creature our people classify as a planetary threat," the guard said. "Its adults have destroyed outposts, torn armored transports open like empty fruit shells. Even our elite hunters keep a distance from their young." Ethan nodded. "I read about the species on the way here. Everything said they were unstoppable, untrainable, and completely unpredictable. Then why do you not fear it?" "Because fear clouds judgment," Ethan said. "And judgment is the only thing that keeps you alive around a real predator." The guard blinked, visibly unsettled. Your species is very strange. Ethan chuckled. We hear that a lot. The corridor expanded into a large testing chamber enclosed by transparent walls reinforced with hexagonal shields. A team of male engineers and scientists adjusted calibrated panels, set environmental parameters and checked security systems. They all maintained a respectful distance, but their eyes never left the cub. One scientist approached, his posture rigid. Dr. Cole, we will begin with non-hostile stimuli. Visual patterns, sounds, environmental changes. We must see how the cub reacts, both independently and to your input. Ethan nodded. Just tell me where to stand. You may remain seated or standing, the scientist replied. As long as the cub remains calm. Ethan stepped into the chamber. The cub opened its eyes slowly, blinking all four lids as it surveyed the space. Its claws dug lightly into Ethan's shirt as it adjusted, sensing the shift in atmosphere. Ethan whispered softly and the cub relaxed. The first test began with a fluttering holographic projection of a small prey creature. The cub's eyes widened, all four pupils dilating in synchrony. Its tail lifted slightly, instinct awakening. Ethan tapped its nose gently. No hunting, he said. The cub blinked up at him, confused but attentive. The projection scurried across the air. The cub bristled, then looked back at Ethan again, awaiting instruction. He shook his head. The creature huffed, lowering its stance, refusing to chase. A wave of astonishment rippled through the observers. It obeyed a command, one of them whispered. A Vor'kan juvenile obeyed a non-Vor'kan command. Next, a series of loud, sudden noises echoed through the chamber. Simulated thunder, metallic crashes, predator roars. The cub tensed, claws tightening, but Ethan kept one steady hand on its back, grounding it. The creature calmed quickly, even as the sounds grew more unsettling. More murmurs followed. He stabilizes it. Impossible. The final test involved a shifting terrain simulation, floor panels rising and falling to mimic unstable ground. The cub instinctively tried to leap to a higher position, but Ethan steadied it against his chest. Stay, he said firmly. It froze, trembling faintly but obeying. When the test ended, the cub pressed its head against Ethan's neck, overwhelmed by the sensory barrage. He lifted it gently and supported its weight, whispering reassuringly until it settled once more. The scientist stared at him like he had just rewritten physics. You are a stabilizing anchor, the lead researcher said quietly. The bond is stronger than we anticipated. Ethan stroked the cub's neck. He's not trying to hurt anyone. Not now, the scientist replied. But as he matures, his protective instincts may grow volatile. What happens when someone threatens you? Ethan's hand stilled. Then we'll have to make sure no one does. The scientist nodded slowly but remained visibly troubled. Before Ethan could say more, a sharp alert tone blared through the testing wing. The lights shifted to emergency yellow. Guards rushed toward control stations, shouting updates. Unidentified breach at the west docking arm. Unauthorized personnel detected. Ethan turned as a security officer sprinted in. Dr. Cole, the officer called. You must take cover. Why? Ethan asked. Because the attackers are shouting about the Vor'kan cub, the officer said. They claim it's an abomination that must be destroyed before it matures. Ethan shifted the cub protectively against his chest. They're after him. And you, the officer added grimly. They believe humans can control predators. That makes you dangerous. The cub growled softly, its small body tensing with a protective instinct Ethan recognized instantly. Ethan's pulse tightened. They're coming here, aren't they? Yes, the officer said. And fast. Ethan took a step toward the reinforced wall. The cub dug its claws in deeper, as if understanding what was happening. Fear mixed with ferocity radiated from its small frame. The chamber doors sealed automatically, locking them in. The lights brightened, framing Ethan and the cub at the center of the room. Dr. Cole, the guard said, voice breathless with urgency, if the rogue group reaches this wing they will not hesitate. They fear what you represent. Ethan steadied his breathing, brushing a hand over the cub's trembling back. Then they're about to learn something. What? The guard asked. That the cub isn't the only one who fights back. The cub pressed against him, for eyes glowing with a budding ferocity, as if sensing the storm approaching. And outside the sealed doors, the footsteps of the attackers drew closer. The ship settled into an uneasy silence after the jump, its engines humming with a strange irregularity that made Jarek's senses prickle. He stood in the narrow observation corridor, arms folded, the predator cub draped across his shoulders like a furry, carnivorous stole. The little creature's tail lightly tapped against his chest in a lazy rhythm, completely unbothered by the tension radiating through the deck plates. Tovin joined him, eyes fixed on the shifting star field. "The navigation buoy is gone," he said quietly, antennae twitching. "Something erased the whole beacon grid." "Not destroyed, erased." Jarek lifted a brow. "You're sure it's not just malfunctioning?" Tovin shook his head. "I would stake my shells on it." This was precision work. The cub gave a low, rumbling purr, sensing Jarek's tightening posture. It nudged its snout into his neck, a gesture of comfort that would have been adorable if not for the rows of tiny razor-edged fangs brushing dangerously close to his skin. Jarek chuckled despite himself. "You're not helping, little guy." Tovin swallowed hard, his gaze flicking nervously to the creature. "Does it understand language?" "No idea," Jarek said. "But it understands tone. And tension." "Wonderful," Tovin muttered. "A living mood detector that can decapitate me by sneezing." Jarek didn't deny it. Instead he pushed off the window frame and started toward the bridge. The cub clung easily, shifting its grip without ever scratching him, a feat that continued to astonish the alien crew. Every time they saw the creature treat Jarek with impossible gentleness, it triggered a fresh wave of awe and fear. The moment they stepped onto the bridge, the atmosphere thickened. Captain Salvek stood rigidly at the helm, mandibles pinched tight. His eyes darted to Jarek and then immediately to the cub, as though looking at one too long might invite catastrophe. "We intercepted a transmission," Salvek said. "From the Vor'kan outpost. Put simply, it was a distress call." Jarek stiffened. "What happened?" Salvek gestured at the hollow screen. "It might be easier if you hear it." The playback hissed to life, filled with static and distant metallic groans. The voice that emerged was ragged, panicked, and distinctly alien. "Not possible. Not possible. They're back. The elders warned us." A crash followed and something like claws screeching against reinforced alloy. "They want the cub. They want—" The audio ended in a scream abruptly cut short. Tovin rubbed his arms nervously. "The Predator elders. Why would they want the cub? They abandoned him." "Not abandoned," Jarek said quietly. "Hunted." Salvek's gaze sharpened. "Explain." Jarek exhaled slowly. "When I found him he was injured. More than injured. Something, was tracking him with deliberate precision. Not as prey but as a liability. A loose variable." "You believe his own kind want him dead?" Salvek asked. "I don't just believe it," Jarek said. "I'm certain." The cub whined softly, nuzzling his jaw as though remembering the pain. Jarek scratched behind its ear, murmuring something soft and reassuring. The bridge crew watched the interaction with a mix of fascination and dread. The calm shattered when the proximity alarm flared to life. 3 red signatures appeared on the outer rim of the sensor range. Their shapes were unmistakable, sleek, spine-lined, and predatory. "Vor'kan hunter ships," Salvek whispered. "But those models are meant for capturing fully grown predators." "Great," Jarek muttered. "So they're overkill." Another signature blinked onto the screen, larger, heavier, and unmistakably dangerous. Tovin staggered backward. Is that a matriarch-class vessel?" Salvek didn't answer. He didn't need to. The cub growled, not in fear but in recognition. In anger. Jarek tightened his grip. "They're not taking him." The bridge dimmed as the main console shifted to battle readiness. The Vor'kan ships advanced with terrifying speed, angling to cut off escape routes. Salvek issued rapid commands to the crew. "Shields up. Maneuvering thrusters online. Do not fire unless I command it." Jarek shot him a sharp look. "You're not planning to negotiate, are you?" "I must," Salvek said. "If we provoke a matriarch vessel, we sign our own death warrants." "We provoke them just by existing within their sensor range," Jarek countered. "You think they came here to chat?" "Perhaps not," Salvek admitted, "but this is not a battle we can win." Jarek glanced down at the cub, who now crouched low on his shoulder, eyes narrowed. "Then we don't fight. We evade." Salvek stared at him. "Their speed eclipses ours." "Not if I take the cub to the cargo maintenance shaft." Tovin blinked. That makes no sense." Jarek motioned to the screen where the Vor'kan formation tightened. "They're not after your ship. They're after him. If I isolate myself they follow me. You cut off, drop into the atmosphere of the nearest planet and lose them." Salvek's mandibles clicked sharply. "I will not sacrifice you." "You're not sacrificing me," Jarek said. They won't kill the cub as long as they believe they can recover him intact. They can't risk injuring their own. I'll be leverage. Tovin wrung his hands. This is insanity. That's humanity, Jarek corrected with a lopsided grin. We improvise. Badly. Before anyone could stop him, he jogged toward the rear exit. The cub clung tighter, sensing the shift, its tail wrapping protectively around his neck. Jarek whispered to it, "Don't worry, kiddo. I've dealt with worse." Solvek called after him. "Jarek, you cannot outrun them." Jarek turned just enough to flash a reckless smile. "Watch me." He pushed through the maintenance hatch and dropped into the dim service corridor. The lights flickered as the ship jolted, a sign the Vor'kan hunters were closing in. The cub pressed its head against his cheek, trembling. Jarek stroked its back gently. "Hey, you're the bravest little nightmare in the galaxy. I'm not letting anyone take you." The creature emitted a soft churring sound, a vulnerable noise that didn't match its fearsome species. Jarek felt a surge of protectiveness so intense it nearly staggered him. He reached the auxiliary control room, sealed the door and accessed the manual override. The interface flickered to life, and he input a sequence Solvek had once shown him in confidence, a risky maneuver meant for last resort evasions. "All right," Jarek whispered, "let's give them something to chase." The ship suddenly lurched, alarms blaring. Through the small viewport, he saw the stars twist as Solvek executed a sharp evasive drop the moment Jarek's beacon detached. The hunters reacted instantly. Their formation shifted, two locking onto Jarek's isolated life sign ping, while the matriarch vessel slowed, observing. "Good," Jarek murmured. "Keep watching. We're not done yet." He activated the micropod, a tiny emergency craft barely large enough for himself and the cub. The walls creaked as the pod detached from the ship, spinning into open space. The cub let out a nervous hiss, but Jarek steadied it with a firm hand. "Easy. We're gonna survive this. I promised, didn't I?" The pod rocketed away, engines screaming. The two hunter ships followed immediately, their weapons powering up. Jarek's pulse hammered, but he forced calm into his voice. "They won't fire. Not with you here." And they didn't. Instead, they pressed closer, herding him like prey toward the waiting matriarch vessel. Jarek gritted his teeth. "Figures. They want me to deliver myself." He toggled the distress beacon to a narrower frequency. "Solvek, if you can hear this, get out of here. You've got a window. Use it." Static responded. Either the signal was jammed, or Solvek was too far already. Jarek hoped it was the latter. The matriarch vessel loomed ahead, a monstrous shadow bristling with armor, its hull adorned with intricate, brutal patterns that seemed to shift in the light. The hunter ships boxed him in, forcing his trajectory. The cub growled, louder this time as though defying fate itself. "I know," Jarek whispered. "But we're not beaten." The matriarch's docking arms unfolded, reaching for the pod like claws ready to seize prey. Every instinct screamed at Jarek to flee, to fight, to do anything except surrender. But then he saw something, movement on the vessel's hull that didn't belong. A flicker of energy. A mismatch in the heat signature. Someone else was there. Someone unauthorized. Jarek frowned, leaning toward the viewport. What the hell? Before he could analyze further, the pod shuddered violently as the docking clamp latched onto it. The cub snarled, bracing itself against Jarek's chest. Metal shrieked around them. Jarek whispered, "Stay with me. No matter what happens, stay with me." The outer hatch tore open. And a towering figure, one that was neither predator nor hunter, reached inside. Jarek's breath caught. Because whatever it wasn't coming for the cub. It was coming for him. And the cub, for the first time, recoiled in fear. Everything Jarek thought he understood about the central threat fractured in a single heartbeat, and he realized with a jolt of dread. The Vor'kan ships weren't the real danger. Something worse had found them. Jarek's first instinct was to shield the cub with his entire body, twisting so his back faced the intruding silhouette. The air inside the pod crackled as the massive figure stepped in, its shape broad and imposing, its armor etched with unfamiliar symbols that shimmered faintly in the dim light. It moved with a fluidity that contradicted its size, neither lumbering like the Vor'kan hunters nor gliding like the sleek predator species that birthed the cub. The creature's helmet lowered, and for a moment Jarek saw his own reflection warped across the faceplate, a distorted, anxious human form shielding a trembling apex predator infant. The figure spoke with a voice deep and rasping, a sound like gravel dragged across metal. "You are human," it said, as though confirming a long-held suspicion. Jarek tightened his hold on the cub. "Depends who's asking." The figure's posture shifted slightly, not hostile, but purposeful. We are the Wardens. We existed before the Vor'kan hunters. Before their clans fractured. Before their thirst for dominance eclipsed their purpose. We safeguarded the equilibrium of their kind. We failed. Jarek processed the words with a mix of disbelief and tightening dread. You're saying you're, what? Old guardians? We were, the warden replied. Now we are all that remains of a forgotten oath. The cub whimpered against Jarek's chest, all bravado stripped away. Whatever this being was, the predator infant recognized it instinctively, and feared it. That alone was enough to put Jarek's nerves on edge. Why are you after him? Jarek asked, refusing to step aside. The warden tilted its head. We are not here to harm the youngling. We are here to prevent the Vor'kan matriarch from reclaiming what she intends to weaponize. Jarek's breath hitched. Weaponize a cub? Not merely a cub, the warden said. He is the offspring of the last primal line. A lineage bred for war before civilization tempered instinct. His genetic pattern is too volatile for their society. Too dangerous to be left alive. Too valuable to destroy. Jarek swallowed hard. So they want to control him. They want to bind him, the warden corrected. Break him. Mold him into the perfect hunt master. A creature of pure predation loyal only to the matriarch. The cub pressed into Jarek's chest as though hoping to disappear entirely. Jarek cupped its head gently, letting his voice drop into a steady murmur. Not happening. Not while I'm breathing. The warden stepped forward and Jarek instinctively stepped back until his spine struck the pod wall. The creature raised one large, clawed hand, not in aggression but in invitation. Human, it said, we detected your interference. Your refusal to surrender the youngling. Your willingness to separate from your own vessel. We concluded you might value life beyond the calculations of advantage. We need your help. Help? Jarek scoffed. Your ships could reduce mine to atoms. What do you need from me? A choice, the warden said. One only a human would make. Before Jarek could answer, the entire pod shuddered violently as the matriarch vessel fired some kind of tethering clamp toward the docking bay. Alarms shrieked. The Vor'kan hunters were repositioning, surrounding the larger ship, preparing to force boarding protocols if diplomacy failed. The warden stiffened. They are moving faster than anticipated. Then explain quickly, Jarek snapped. The warden turned, its massive form blocking the hatchway. We cannot take the youngling. They would detect our escape. But you, your biology, your insignificance to their ancestral conflict, acts as camouflage. They do not expect resistance from you. Insignificance. Jarek muttered. Thanks. You misunderstand, the warden said. Humans disrupt patterns. You defy the calculated logic of predator and prey. You confuse the Vor'kan hierarchy. They cannot predict you. This is your strength. Jarek blinked. You're telling me my species' reputation for chaos is useful? Yes. Well, Jarek said with a shaky grin, that's comforting. The warden leaned closer. If the matriarch takes the youngling, war will follow. Entire systems will burn. The hunters will split into factions. Every species within their reach will suffer. And you want me to stop this? Jarek asked. We want you, the warden replied, to protect him long enough for us to break the matriarch's chain of command. Jarek's jaw clenched. And if I refuse? Then the cub dies. Slowly. Purposefully. And the galaxy with him. The cub glanced up at Jarek, its golden eyes wide and vulnerable, not the eyes of a weapon nor a monster. Just a frightened child who had lost his home, his people, and now faced a destiny neither of them asked for. Jarek breathed out sharply. All right. What do I do? The warden stepped aside and gestured to the docking corridor. You must leave the pod. The matriarch expects to retrieve a terrified creature. Instead she will receive a human who refuses to kneel. Jarek blinked. And that helps how? It confuses her, the warden said simply. It gives us a narrow window to infiltrate her central control node. You merely need to delay her long enough. Just delay? Jarek asked. Yes. And what happens after you cut her command chain? Then her hunters turn on her. And the cub is no longer hunted. Jarek hesitated only a moment before nodding. He brushed a thumb along the cub's jaw. Stay close. No matter what. He stepped out of the pod. The corridor beyond was dimly lit, pulsing with bioluminescent veins that formed eerie patterns across the walls. The air was humid, almost breathable yet full of alien scents, metallic tang, musk, and ozone. The warden followed silently. The matriarch awaits. Jarek tightened his grip on the cub and marched forward. His boots echoed on the organic metal flooring, each step sending tremors through his nerves. At the end of the corridor, a massive door unfurled like a blooming flower, revealing a cavernous chamber glowing with deep crimson light. The matriarch was enormous. Standing on a raised platform, she towered over every Vor'kan Jarek had ever seen, her silhouette a tapestry of jagged armor, elegant spines, and eyes like molten amber. Her presence commanded terror by design, her posture coiled with predatory authority. When her gaze landed on Jarek, confusion rippled across her expression. "Why?" she hissed. "Do you carry what is mine?" Jarek swallowed the instinctive urge to run. "Because he's not yours," he said. "He's not anyone's." The chamber fell into stunned silence. Whispered clicks reverberated among the hunters lining the walls. Jarek could feel their disbelief. No one spoke to a matriarch like that. No one. She descended the platform with a deliberate grace, each movement precise and lethal. "Human," she said softly, "your heartbeat betrays you. You know you are prey in my presence." "Maybe," Jarek replied, "but he isn't. And I won't let you turn him into a weapon." She stopped inches from him, towering, her shadow engulfing him entirely. The cub hissed but stayed tucked against Jarek's chest. "You do not comprehend the significance of his bloodline," she said. "He is the last heir to the primal throne." "Then maybe," Jarek said, "the primal throne needs to stay empty." Her mandibles flared. "You are bold. Foolishly so." "You have no idea," Jarek said. At that moment something shifted in the chamber. A faint flicker in the lights. A tremor in the air, almost imperceptible. Jarek realized instantly, the Wardens had begun their infiltration. The matriarch sensed it too. Her head snapped upward. "What?" Jarek acted on instinct. He stepped forward and shouted loud enough to echo off every wall. "Over here." It was not a battle cry. It was not a threat. It was pure, chaotic human audacity, and it worked. Every hunter in the room turned. The matriarch whirled, fury twisting her features. "You insolent." But she didn't finish. The floor shook. The walls vibrated. The lights pulsed violently as the Warden strike teams disabled core systems. The matriarch's command node flickered, destabilizing the psychic tether binding her hunters. Suddenly the hunters' eyes changed, confusion washing over them as the matriarch's mental chokehold snapped. "No," the matriarch roared. "Obey me." But they no longer heard her. Her control was gone. The hunters stepped back from her, their bodies shifting into a defensive posture, against her. She spun in wild disbelief, realization dawning too late. Jarek held his ground, breath shaking but steady. The matriarch lunged. Jarek braced for death. But the cub moved first. It leapt from his arms, tiny but blazing with instinctive fury, landing on the matriarch's face with a screeching snarl. She staggered, clawing at the cub, shocked by its ferocity. The hunters surged. In a coordinated movement that echoed ancient instincts long suppressed, they brought the matriarch crashing down in a thunderous impact. Her scream was swallowed by the chamber and then silence fell. The cub crawled back to Jarek, trembling. He scooped it up immediately, pressing it against his chest. "You okay?" "That was insane. But impressive." The cub licked his chin, exhausted. The Wardens entered then, stepping through the fractured doorway. Their leader nodded at Jarek. "The matriarch has fallen. A new council will rise, one that does not seek the youngling's destruction or enslavement." Jarek exhaled shakily. "So, it's over?" "For him," the warden said. Then, with a faint hum of respect, added, "And because of you." Jarek looked down at the cub nestled against him. "What happens now?" "He stays with you," the warden said, "until the new order is stable. He trusts you beyond even his own species. That bond is rare, unbreakable. You saved him. Now he will save many." Jarek nodded slowly. "I can do that." The warden inclined its head. "Human, today you altered fate." Jarek scratched behind the cub's ear, smiling. "Just doing what any decent guy would do." The cub purred, curling tighter against him as the chamber's harsh red lights softened. For the first time since the chase began, Jarek felt the tension in his chest loosen. They had survived. Together. And somewhere deep in the vast, unpredictable galaxy, a new future had begun, shaped not by bloodline or fear, but by a human's refusal to abandon a tiny, terrifying, adorable predator who trusted him completely.